So, Rev, yesterday we learned of the passing of legendary singer, actor, and human rights activist Harry Belafonte. As the Associated Press notes, Belafonte stands as the model and the epitome of the celebrity activists. Few kept up with his time and commitment, and none his stature as a meeting point among Hollywood, Washington, and the civil rights movement. Belafonte was a close friend of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. And Rev, he appeared with you at the National Action Network convention in 2017. Let's take a look.
To Reverend Sharpton, I saw him when he first came on the scene, and I have marveled at his tenacity, at the development of his intellect and his devotion to our movement, and much that he has contributed to the world we are experiencing. I am honored, and I must say that when I had my debate with Dr. King on the issue of the church and religion, he didn't warn me that after his departure, his space would be filled by another preacher, and that preacher would be Al Sharpton. I am blessed and honored to have marched with him, stood on platforms with him, and been in his space and listened to the richness of his counsel.
Rev, people know Harry Belafonte for his voice and his movies and, of course, his civil rights work, but I'm not sure they fully appreciate that he was, in many ways, the lifeblood of the American civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s as it was in its infancy, in terms of using his success in entertainment to bankroll and fund SNCC and SCLC and all these organizations that revolutionized the country.
No, I think that you said it right. He was the lifeblood. Those that mentored me would say that if it wasn't Harry Belafonte, we couldn't have afforded to do a lot of the marches and a lot of things that we did. He was an activist that could deal with Dr. King and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, who were generationally apart and had tactical differences, because everyone understood he was really committed. He really was authentic. And his mentor was Paul Robeson, and he modeled after that, not caring what people felt, really believing it. When I would be honored to have private sessions with him, he wanted to always know, do you really believe that? Are you saying that because it's political? Or are you saying that because you mean it? And I think that you had to win over the kind of support he would give. So he would say, I'm with you on this, Sharpton, and I want to help with these young folks. He has a group he helped start, Rosie Perez and the Gathering. He said, y'all may operate different ways, but as long as you got the movement out front. And that was the kind of person he was. There was no one that I would say that equaled him in terms of his commitment. And he changed culture and he changed politics at the same time. No one broke through as a crossover, we would call it, in terms of mainstreaming black talent like Harry Belafonte did, but at the same time would fight the social order and help change the social order, risking what he was doing in his theatrical and performances as an entertainer. He risked all of that for that. And I think that's why Mrs. King and others used to tell us there's nothing like Harry. He's like a force of nature. And he will be missed, but history will be kind.
You know, Willie and I were talking yesterday about his life. It's such a great American life. And we would occasionally, Willie would, and I would occasionally see him around the Upper West Side. And still, despite his age, he would stop traffic. Harry Belafonte would stop traffic. And you just mentioned the risks that he took. Do you think that the risks he took in the infancy of the civil rights movement in the 50s and the early 60s, did it impede his career at all, do you think?
I think that it did. Clearly, we probably will not know all of what happened because he was not a complainer. And then I think I talk a lot to Ken Sunshine, who was his publicist and spokesman for years, and still is for many of us in the movement. And the thing you don't know is how many things he turned down because he would not prostitute his skills and his way of doing things. He was not one that would do minstrel things. He had a certain level, a certain standard that he'd have. And that's why, for a while I lived across the street from the West Side, and I would go over to talk to him, and Pamela would let me and his wife. And you'd always straighten up your back because you didn't know if you were going to get a tongue lashing or a pat on the back, or both, because he had standards. That was Mr. B, as we would call him. And the only sorrow I have is that when I walk off, he won't be ringing my phone to critique me talking to you about him, because he would do that as well.
I love it. Thank you, Rev, for that. We're going to